Hey, good morning, Leases Team. We have a 3-day weekend coming up. I wanted to get back to you regarding our meeting on Monday and my redraft of the technical release. I've incorporated comments from our internal reviewers as well as many of yours, if not all of yours. Now, admittedly, I took a lot of notes on Monday, right? I might have missed one or two significant edits that you may have given me. I don't think I did, but I could have, okay? Because it's just tough handling everyone's edits and input and going through the comment boxes. You kind of know how that goes. But anyway, here's what I like to do. I'm going to send out a revised TR. It's a lot slimmer, it's sleeker, it's leaner, it's meaner, smaller teeth than what we had before. The strategy will be, again, all the illustrations are going to be held for training and outreach, education. That's what I'm thinking is the best thing to do, because if we were to float all the illustrations out for exposure, I think it's going to be a real difficult time. I'm pretty sure that's what we did through the reporting entity process, and then there was a lot of work after. Not just because of that, but they had to set up a technical team with Treasury. Brian Castro could tell us more about that from Treasury. But anyway, so we want to avoid all of this. So the TR now is primarily focusing on the interplay between 49 and reporting entity and leases. I just sent the reporting entity team a video along with the same draft you're going to look at with the same instructions. So we'll kind of go over what I'd like for you to really focus on here. Primarily, I'm asking you to look at, first of all, you can look at the whole document, but what I really need input on right now is the following pages, or all the following pages. Let's go through. Page 10. You'll see that on page 10, which is the introduction, we're only really addressing 2 implementation challenges, and there were about over a dozen, right? In total, there were 15. I think we whittled them down to 12, and then from there we whittled them down a little further, but there were a lot more than 2. What we're doing really is taking all the risk stuff, the materiality stuff, and really punting and putting it for training and education. Technical inquiry type reviews too. If you've got a problem, you come in with a TI and then we give you a written response. That's probably the best way to handle a lot of those risk questions and materiality kind of questions. But as you know, we really don't answer materiality questions. We kind of guide a little bit, but we don't try to get involved. So take a look at the 2 challenges. The first challenge is the interplay between standard 47, reporting entity, and 54 leases, your bailiwick. The second challenge, I reworded it, you can see it. It says identifying P3 risk in some common arrangements or transactions. And those are the Q&As. Now, it might be best to change the title of that second challenge to just, some common Q&As, right? I'm not sure if they really do capture P3 risk in leases, for example. I'd like some input from you there. Tell me what you think there. Have I labeled the challenge correctly for B? You'll see it on page 10. Okay? So what I also like to ask is for someone on the team to take the leadership role of being a scribe, putting all the edits together, and then sending it to me in one comprehensive document. It's just becoming unwieldy to receive all these comments and for me to try to crank them back out to you timely. And ultimately, we've got to remember, we've got to run this through the AAPC. Well, first we're going to run through the board, then the AAPC. So there'll be a lot of back and forth. So if you're looking for job security, you've got it. Don't even worry about that, okay? So let us now proceed to page 14. Page 14, you see, will begin the discussion of Standard 49 and its relationship to 54. And again, I've taken into consideration Alan Perry's suggested edits. The one place I disagreed with you folks on is where he was this. We talked about this lease versus non-lease um, in the first question here, uh, and I would concur with him. I think that was the question. Yeah, in the first. No, no, not in the first question. In that first paragraph, excuse me. In that the old paragraph 12 is now changed. Um, I did drop out the however, that sentence. Um, so Sam Fuller, thank you. I did do that, Sam. Letha, um, you were concerned about his edits causing confusion. I kind of get where you're going, but I do think he makes a good point that we should distinguish between lease and non-lease. But Letha, if you do have a concern, and I want to hear you because both you and Jana have done, well, have to say, especially Jana, but both of you, I mean, have provided really wonderful comments. And I was actually telling Frank Peterson at the conference on Wednesday how how happy I am with what we see happening over at NASA, and not on the program side, on this accounting side. So thank you, and I know it's been hard work. But listen, call me. I'd rather talk about this than go through an email or these comment boxes. I learned from listening, from auditory listening. That's why I like music. I learn a lot from music, actually. But anyway, even some rap you can learn, believe me. So take a look at the first question. I mean, the first paragraph that Alan wanted to edit, and there were some questions about lease versus non-lease. Look at the comment boxes. My recommendation is look at this in what they call the simple mode. Is it simple mode? Yeah, simple markup. You'll see, you won't see all the redlining, but you'll see the comment boxes. The best way, if you wanted to do a comparison, is to open up the document I sent you for Monday's meeting, Alan's comments, against this and do a side-by-side. Okay, that's the best way. I was unable to really copy and paste the edit track changes version, and maybe it's for the best. Christy made a point about the exclusion in 15B being possibly amended or simplified. I kind of read it again this morning, and not to take exception, I don't know how. I mean, how much simpler can you make it? I don't know if I even have it called up here. I think I do. Let's see. Is it 49? Leases that are not bundled and are entered into using GSA administrative or administration delegated authority are excluded. And what we say here is this statement does not amend existing standards applicable to leases, and those standards remain applicable to all such arrangements and transactions. That's because we still hadn't issued the leases standard. So, I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 words. I just don't know why we would amend this. It just makes perfect sense to me. You have two preconditions. Leases, one, to be exempt, have to be unbundled, right? Just a plain vanilla lease. And secondly, the agency must have entered into that lease using the delegated authority granted to it either by GSA or, like in DOD's case, Title 10. Everything they do is Title 10, Title 10, Title 10. So anyhow, I just don't know. Let me have feedback, Christy, if you really think we could do better. Sam, you kind of thought that too, but I don't know. Maybe it's an education thing, right? Maybe it's an example thing. Next, okay, the question now, okay? Our question's on page 14. First one, what are the required disclosures if a P3 arrangement or transaction contains a lease component as defined in 54? You'll see the answer, and I'm trying to see here. I did accept Alan's tentative. I tentatively accepted his edits. I didn't think they were major. But I want to know if you're cool with it. You'll see the bubble comment, so please go back and take a look, because I want to defer to you, the practitioners, as much as possible. If you, the auditors and preparers, are hard over on an issue, I'll fight for it. Trust me, I will. But so take a look at that. Then, yeah, I think Letha made a question here about adding the right of economic benefit. I'm not sure if we did that or not. So Letha, can you take a look at where you wanted to include economic benefit along with the use of control? Alan didn't suggest that, I don't think, as an edit, but I think it's in here somewhere. But take a look at it, please, if you can. The next question: how can I tell if a P3 contains a 54 lease as opposed to another type of contract or arrangement? I added an example, the SCA example. I think that coincides with what Christy also suggested. So take a look at that, Christy, if you don't mind, and the rest of you on the Leases team. Question 2, that answer. Is it sufficiently expressed now that we added an example? I thought that was a very good point from Alan and from Christy. The next question on page 15. What are some key characteristics? I got rid of the box, okay? I got rid of the box. I think a lot of you told me that. Letha, delete the charge, right? And she was so right. Because when you think about it, it's like, duh, Dom, just focus on the risk. And we got the risk identified. As Letha said in paragraphs 20, you got the risk-based characteristics out of conclusive, and then you got the suggestive ones in 21, paragraph 21. So I think that's a simple, straightforward answer. Hopefully it's beneficial to the community, right? I hope they don't come back and say, well, we need a chart, we need a table, Again, that's where the case illustrations would help, all right? And that'll be education, which, by the way, if any of you want to join the P3 training team I've got, let me know, because you could really bring some cool realism being practitioners, I mean, I've been away from the game for a while. I mean, I have the scars to prove it, I show you, but you folks are there right now. So if, we can roll out some training on risk reporting and how to interpret 49. Why don't you consider joining the team? Okay, so then the last question on page 16, are energy savings and performance contracts leases or P3s? Christy, I added your language in here, I believe, along with other language. What I'm saying here is, in most cases, as April and I, of course, discussed, we agree, most of you would agree, yeah, it's a P3 because there's a risk element in it. They're not typically leases for 2 reasons we put in here. The government usually does not have the right to control access to the economic benefits or services of the underlying asset. That was Christie's addition, all right? And 2, the private party is responsible for the construction and financing of the required equipment, and the government usually has no obligation or risk during the construction period. Now, is item 2 a precondition or not a precondition, or one of the reasons why it's not a lease? Just make sure that makes logical sense. You gotta understand, it's Friday. I've had like 5 of these. I'm confused. I need help. I'm compiling all these edits and trying to, rationalize them and understand them as I do them. And I might have something logically wrong here, but kind of sounds right, but I want to hear from you, okay? So, once you get through with the Q&A, okay, you've done the intro, you've looked at the challenges that are there in that little box, you got through these Q&As, then I want you to go to page 20 and 21, look at the flow chart. Now, page 20 kind of gives the steps we want people to follow in using the flow chart. I think the flow chart's pretty nailed down now, okay? At this point, whether we put the materiality box in the front, the left, the right, the bottom. Let's let the board and the AEPC argue some of these things. What we need to do is bring pretty much a draft, and I know you're all professionals, you're trying to get to an ultimate work product, but we're making sausage here, so the best we could do is throw the stuff into the mixer and then let the board and the AAPC mix it up and figure out how they want the sausage to taste. So take a look at the first step. We begin by identifying arrangements that might be P3s. Might be, right? We don't know yet. Are they material? Is there a risk? Second step, you go to reporting entity first. Look at it. Is it a structural arrangement? Is there an SPE, a partnership, an LLC involved, right? No. If you run it through 47 and you're cool and clean, then you go to leases, right? We're saying go to leases and then see if the lease guidance applies. And the last step is you harmonize disclosures. Very simple. Now I want you to know I went back to 47 just a few minutes ago, and 47's got a flowchart. I patterned this right out. As a matter of fact, I took the 47 flowchart, and don't tell me that, I copied it and then I edited it, right? So this way, if like Melissa came back and said, this is a stupid flowchart, I'd say, oh yeah, really? Well, guess where I got it from? Anyhow, she wouldn't say that. Well, at least not to you, but she probably might say it to me. So in 47, that flowchart didn't have any narrative. So if it was good for 47 without narrative, maybe it's good enough for us without narrative. Now, to be fair, Melissa did a great job afterwards because she had to sit on a Treasury committee. Some of you might have been on, or a working group to help implement 47. Treasury took the lead on that. So let's hope hey, look, if we have to do that and keep the P3 implementation team alive, you're wonderful people. Well, yeah, at least most of you are, and we can address issues as they come up. And that's what I want to do with the TI process. I want to tell the board, look, we were very ambitious in trying to address everything, all the management challenges or implementation challenges, and we came up with a weighty document. We finally realized, hey, look, this is not going to float, so we've going to limit it down just to the, again, implementation issues with 47 and 54 and answer some common questions. So again, take a look at this. Try to run any significant edits. Don't worry about commas and wording, wordsmithing. That is only going to frustrate us all. Big stuff, important stuff, like this thing on ESPCs. Are those items 1 and 2, do they really underpin why ESPCs are not leases? All right? Take a look at that. And again, Letha, any of you who may disagree with an approach I've taken or think there's something missing, call me. I think it's just easier to talk about these things. I know I'll understand more because I could listen to you, take notes, ask questions as opposed to email, right? We got a 3-day weekend. I hope you're all well and going to enjoy it. If you want to call me, I'm at 703-309-4461. Okay, I'm going to process this video and then send it to you. And I hope to hear from you all soon so we can get this thing moving. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.